Welcome everyone. My name is Jane Archer, and today I'm going to review the ToAuto 1 kilo and 3 kilogram electric digital smelting furnace. ToAuto donated this to Inspiring Metalsmith's Jewelry Facebook page so that we could review it. This is not a paid sponsorship. It will be my honest review and my first impression. When I offered to do this review, I kind of wondered, like, well, what do I need a smelter for? I've never needed one over the past 20 years of working in metalsmithing. So why would I need one now? I don't cast metal. I used to cast glass decades ago, but that's on a whole different scale. But then I thought about it and I came up with two good reasons. First of all, this is a good way to recycle my own scraps instead of selling them for pennies on the dollar. I don't do that very often, but still, you really lose a lot of money doing that. And this is not for smelting fines where you would have to, what do they call it? They pull out all the bad stuff and the copper and stuff like that. This is just melting your scraps and making an ingot, rolling it out in your rolling mill. And then I also found out about a fabulous class offered by Robin Cornelius of cast rings, and I thought, well, I want to do that. I want to take that class. So I think I could do it with this. This kiln is considered a budget kiln. It's less expensive than other kilns out on the market. It's a pretty complete kit. So I think from a financial standpoint, it probably makes sense. So let's see what we have. Okay, this is the box it came in. It looks like it's very well packaged. Let's open this up. I'm eager to see what we have. Ooh, look at this. Comes with a pair of gloves, which you're going to want to use. Safety first. Instruction manual. Pair of tongs here. I have heard that the handles come off easily, which they do appear to. Might be prudent to put some adhesive in there first. Power cord. Getting to the good stuff here. Here is a mold. It is graphite. It's kind of small, but I think for uses in a shop, this would do for some things. I would probably buy a larger one to make maybe one a little bit bigger. I don't make wire. I don't have a wire rolling mill, so I would have to stick with making sheet with this. Oh, and these graphite molds are fragile, so handle them carefully. And they will get everything dirty. Here is the first crucible, also made of graphite. Look at that. Oh, I like that. Beautiful. I'm going to put it back in the bag. I think this is the one we're going to use, but I'm going to put it back in the bag anyway. Okay. And here is the second crucible. This would be the 3 kilogram crucible. I can't imagine me ever having 3 kilograms of scrap silver, but that's what it looks like. Beautifully made. And you can buy more crucibles on the web, both from ToAuto and also, lots of places. eBay, probably Etsy, probably other suppliers. Okay, well, here we go. The business end of stuff. Well, you get to use it if you can get it out of the styrofoam. Okay, as I said, it was well packaged. Okay, we're just going to break this. There we go. This thing was catching on the styrofoam. Okay. Give me a moment. I'm going to put this up on my table here. I'm setting this up. I'm going to run this in my studio, which is in my house. And I can't do it outside here. It's too cold. I live outside of Chicago. So I've made this setup to try to take into consideration various factors that could go wrong. So what you see here is I have 2 layers of tile here, 2 layers of porcelain tile. The bottom one is pretty thick. And then I have, surrounding this, I have kiln brick, otherwise known as fire brick. You can get these on eBay, Etsy. The reason for this is, and you'll see when I'm going to move things a little bit right before I pour, but I just, in case there's too much heat coming off of this, in case something were to go wrong, I have my fire extinguisher right nearby. So when you're pouring molten metal, it has a tendency to sputter and to kind of pop out. So I'm going to have to, right before I pour, I'll push this back a little bit. I have to make sure I have space here for the little ingot. Let me get that. I have to make sure I have space for the ingot. Let's see if I can get a better light here. For the ingot mold, I need to be able to pour it. So I'm going to have room to pour it. When I start this, I'm going to make sure that the spout is aligned because I'm right-handed. And I will also turn on my exterior ventilation fan. I don't want any possible fumes setting off my carbon monoxide and smoke detectors in my house, because nobody will hear anything then except that. Now for some of the technical aspects of melting silver. This crucible is pretty small. I use it as my finger for scale. This is the one I really want to try to do. If I have some left over, I'll put it in those. The round one is not as useful because when you roll it out, you're not going to get as useful a sheet of silver. So what you should do is, if your metal isn't already clean, then you should clean it in pickle. So I have here pieces that, you know, they're too small to be really useful. Little bits, tiny bits. I also have this bracelet here, which I just took the stones out of. A piece like this is going to have a lot of solder in it. And the way to compensate for that is by adding casting grain. This amount of solder, I would probably want to add some fine silver casting grain. This is just a sterling casting grain. I've read that it's a good idea to add casting grain regardless of how much or how little solder you have. I think it just makes it more elastic during the pour. If you have heated the metal repeatedly, you're going to have removed some of the copper from it, which will make it, you know, a little bit higher percentage of fine silver or silver. Another thing I've heard to add is flux. It's supposed to help the pourability. I don't know how much. I'll just add some. We'll see. You can add, there's a casting flux you can buy. There's also borax. I use boric acid as a flux, so, and it's just basic roach killer. Just make sure it's pure boric acid. If it has anything else in it, you don't want to use it. Okay, so I've got a scale here, and the reason for the scale is I want to have an idea of how much I'm going to start with and how much, if that fits pretty well with the mold that I'm using. So in the future, I can say, oh, well, last time I used, you know, however many grams, and that was too much or too little, so next time I can use more. So I'm going to pick some out here. I don't want to use my big pieces. My big pieces that I can use for other things. Also, this has paper on it, and so any pieces that have paper, you should remove that. That actually also has, you call it rubber cement on it, so I'd want to clean that before I melted it. Five grams, wow, that adds up. I'm just going to visually, guess visually. So I've heard it takes a while for this furnace to heat up to melting temperature, but I'm not melting very much. I'm going to use the 1 kilogram crucible, but I'm going to use very little silver, really. So I don't think it's going to take that long. It does take a while to heat the crucible up to temperature. Okay, so 8 grams. Let's go for 10 grams. Oh, let's go for more than that. Little sticky bits sticking to my fingers. And this is all silver that I have not, well, it might have been annealed, but it's never been soldered. It's not fine from my bench. 14 grams. And remember, I'm going to add some casting grain to that as well. Okay, I'm going to use this and put the scraps in there, and then use that to dump it into the crucible. That's the plan. So remember, we're starting with 14 grams. If you try putting it in with your hands, remember this crucible is going to be hot, very hot, and then you risk dropping it on the side of the crucible or on the floor where it's sticking to you. You could burn yourself. Oh, wait a minute, I didn't measure out the casting grain. Let's get the casting grain. Gotta get to grams. There we are, grams. And then tare, which means you bring it to 0. There we go. Okay, I have 11 grams. It's not a halfway, but we'll see how this works. Half casting grain seems like a lot. I don't think you need to have that much. Let's do a little bit less. Okay. I'll do about half. So that'll be 7 grams. Let's see how this works. Okay. That's 7 grams. Okay. So I need to preheat the, because it's the first time, I need to preheat the crucible for 10 minutes, and then I will set the temperature, and we'll get started. So now I'm going to turn on the kiln here. It has a toggle switch. Turn it on. The temperature controls are here. I want to click the red button. And that allows me to go up or down. Melting temperature for sterling silver is 893 degrees Celsius. You want to go a little above that, 50 to 100 degrees Fahrenheit above that. So we'll just say, so we'll round off 893 degrees Celsius to 900, so we'll go for 1000 degrees Celsius. Oh, I can hold it. There you go. Oops. Here we go. This is the target, and this is the actual temperature. It's heating up. Okay, there I see the numbers moving. Okay, so here, there's the crucible. I've noticed I've lined up this is not hot yet, the spout over here because I'm right-handed. I'm going to go ahead and close this. There's also a hole at the top that's pretty standard. That's to let fumes out or flames so that they won't come out from around the lid. There we go. You don't want the flames coming out here. They come out here. Let me let that heat up for 10 minutes and then I will put the metal in there. It's been heating up for 10 minutes, which is just a one-time thing. That's what you do the first time you set it up, just to get the moisture out. I'm going to go ahead and pour these things in here. Well, I wanted to mention one thing about the mold. Just prior to pouring the molten metal into the mold, you need to preheat your molds. You can use whatever torch you want. This is the one I use. It's the Euro tool on the portable butane. It's a pretty big torch for being portable. I'll use that to heat this up. I also have a pair of very long tongs. Tweezers. You can use long-handled needle nose pliers, and that's, to pick things up, move things around without getting your hands involved. I put a little bit of borax in here. This is about a teaspoon. Probably use a half to a quarter of that. Okay, so here we go. Open that up. The temperature right now is 380 degrees Celsius. I'm going to use this to put some of the larger pieces in. You don't want to drop heavy pieces in there. These crucibles are fragile, relatively fragile, and you don't want them to get cracked. Okay, that was the scrap silver. This is the casting grain. There we go. And a little bit of borax. Okay, all right, you hear that sizzle. See that? Okay. Close this up and wait for this to come to temperature. Oh, you can hear my ventilation going in the background, but it's very important. So I can really smell that now. So once it gets up to temperature, you do want to you want to leave it at temperature for about 10 minutes. You want it to do what they call soak it. You want to soak it at that temperature to make sure that that temperature is all the way through all the metal and not just on the exterior. There's my little helper there. Ayo, you want to say hi? You want to be quiet now, or you want to say hi? You're smiling. She likes to be up here in my studio. Okay. Speak now or forever hold your peace. Back to business. So I think this should take about a half an hour. So we'll just let this sit and I'll come back, check it. Okay, it's been about 34 minutes. Let me see, that's 44 minutes since I started heating up the crucible. It's at 988, which is a little bit less than I set the target for, but I checked and the metal is molten. So I'm going to go ahead and pour it, and in fact my hardwired smoke detectors have been going off, so I'm going to try to do this as quickly as possible. The kiln is up to temperature. It's been that way for about 10 minutes. I checked, it is molten. So I'm going to go ahead and heat up this mold and then do the pour. Heating up the mold prevents the wrinkles from forming where the metal contacts the mold. hardwired smoke detectors and carbon monoxide detectors did go off, so I had to open all the windows in here as well, which worked. Okay, let's see what we got here. Sorry, that's bad English. Let's see what we have here. Okay. Ooh, that's hot. Oh, ooh, this is great. Feel that heat. There we go. There's a little bit left in there. Just let this come to temperature over time. Off. Okay. I think in the future I would get a different mold. These little tiny molds are kind of hard to pour. But as I pointed out before, the reason we have this setup is because it does tend to, you know, it can spill out, and there we have some. Is on all sides of this, so it's kind of I'll let that cool down a bit before I take it out. There we go. I'll have to cut that apart in order to run it through the rolling mill. It's not that there was too little, it's just that most of it kind of, I was shooting for here and it ended up over there kind of whooped out. Quench. So I can feel heat here, it doesn't feel excessive. The handles are still cool. That's a little bit warmer, but it's, yeah, you wouldn't want to touch that with your bare hands. There's a nice heat column coming out at the top as well. Here's what I have. I'll have to cut this. Probably cut it right across there. And I got this little bit here. The discoloration, I'm not worried about that. That happens when you're casting metal. You just grind it off, steel brush it or something. Since I'll be using it, since I'll be using it, I won't have to worry about it until I get to the point where I want to polish. I've got my little cut off that extra part. I'm going to try running this through the mill. It's going to take many passes. I'm seeing that the pressure is even all the way across, so I'm going to start putting it in horizontally now. See if I can stretch that out the other way. It's getting there. That's about 14 gauge. We're at 16 gauge now. Let's shoot for 20 because that's really the most useful gauge of metal. I haven't had to work this hard on my rolling mill, at a rolling mill, since I took Haas Rogers class. I'm going to run it through a couple more times, but I'm starting to see cracks there, and I think it needs to be annealed. So I'm going to run it through one more time and then anneal it. Oh, we're at 18 gauge right now. I'll just do one more time. Okay. Okay, let's see where we are now. Whew. That's kind of a workout. We are at 20. All right, actually 21. 22 gauge. Okay. I overshot a little bit. So I've got 22 gauge here. Last thoughts. So first of all, my piece here is about 11.5 centimeters by, you know, the cracks just really showed up on this, and the widest usable part really is 2 centimeters. So this is usable. I also have to pickle it to get the discoloration off. Maybe I should have done that beforehand. I don't know. This is all new to me. So last thoughts. I think this is a great thing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to try to get a better mold. I think this mold was too small. Let me just get that here. These molds being so narrow, I think they're really better for wire. I'd like something that's a little bit wider, a little bit better width to length ratio. And then I think it'd be easier to make a sheet of silver. I have never ever drawn it out like that, so it's the first time for me, and I don't think that's too bad. Thoughts on the ToAuto electric smelting furnace. I think it's a great deal for about $300. I don't know what the shipping would be or taxes, but for about $300 you can save yourself having to send back your scraps. I will say though that using your rolling mill, it's a bit of a workout. I don't mind. I need the exercise. But I do, you know, if you're not very strong, then you might not want to go that way. I think the completeness of the kit, barring, you know, the small mold, I think it's amazing. And if I did it in the future, I think it would also melt more, so I would have a larger amount to pour into a single cavity. Obviously, if I get a larger mold, I'd need to melt more at one time. But it was very easy to do. The only problem I had was when my hardwired smoke detectors went off. the cats were just beside themselves. They didn't know what to do. They kept coming up to me and telling me that something was wrong. If you have cats, you know what I mean. But I want to thank ToAuto for sending this to us. I think it's a cool thing. I think it's worth having if this is the way you want to go. I also think if you are at all interested in casting, and like I mentioned, Robin Cornelius has a class that I'm interested in taking. I think this is really cool because I won't have to go someplace to use someone else's equipment. And you do have to get a different kind of mold. It's not a graphite mold. It's a mold with sand. What is it called? Delft clay, I think. And then I can do that, which I think is really cool. In the summer, I would probably move this outside because there were some fumes. I don't know what they were. It could just be that it's a new kiln. They do off-gas some stuff when you heat them up. In my past, I was worked with glass. I helped build kilns, and the kiln brick, or the part that's molded on the inside around where you put the crucible, does have some stuff that burns off, and that may stop at some point. In any case, it is possible to do it in the house. You just have to, well, I ended up opening up the windows when the alarms went off. The heat column was not excessive above it, and the heat around it really was not excessive, so it's obviously well insulated. It contains the heat and directs it to the crucible. Someone I watched online mentioned that this costs about the same amount to run as a space heater. So cost-wise, I don't think that's an issue. I think it's a great little kit. So thank you very much for watching, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye.